And of course, we're seeing that with the Biden administration on the way out the door. They are trying to put as many marbles in front of Donald Trump and the American people as possible. And one of those is different actions to ultimately limit human access to our own property, to public lands. And we've got Josh Lowenstein on the line. He is the founder of Our American Lands. And we'll talk with Sean Pond also, who has been very active in stopping this Dolores Monument. So Josh Lowenstein, welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on, Kim.
Well, absolutely. And as we were preparing for this, I had the great honor to MC your first event of Our American Lands. But you said that Sean has really been on top of this regarding the Stop the Dolores Monument. And then, of course, we're seeing this conversation from the Biden administration that they want to, because of the Canadian Lynx, limit access to thousands of acres in 6 states. So Sean Pond, welcome to the show.
Good morning, Kim. Thanks for having me on.
Well, it's good to have you. So Sean, why don't you set this up for us? There's really several different things that are occurring. So what should people know first?
Oh, it's a long, drawn-out story, and I'll try to cover as much as I can quickly. But the Dolores Monument proposal popped into my existence in February of 2024. On February 20th, I started a petition to halt the Dolores Monument, and honestly didn't know a whole lot about these kind of issues, but I became versed quickly whether I liked it or not. So we started that petition. It gained a lot of traction, which created a lot of phone calls, emails from media outlets, from Congress, from Senate, and we quickly shed some national light on the issues of these federal land grabs and how it impacts local economies. And so here we are today. We're 12 days from January 20th, and so far we haven't had a national monument. So in my personal belief, I think that we've brought enough light to this federal land grab. I think we might beat it, and that's started a whole new problem. So the environmental activists that originally proposed this 400,000-acre national monument have now teamed up with a few locals here in my area and proposed, in lieu of a national monument, a national conservation area. And they're doing their very best to convince these people and the public that a national conservation area would be a good thing and a better alternative to a national monument. And the cases they're stating are simply not true. The differences between a national conservation area and a national monument and how they're managed by the Bureau of Land Management are no different. They still pose the same road closures, trail closures. They close off access to natural resources and critical mineral extraction. And most importantly, they take liberty and freedom away from America.
Okay, so this had been out there, this Dolores Monument. Ultimately, it would have been a land grab. Now, was that all public land? Is there some private property in that as well, Sean? Or what, of this 400,000 acres?
Kind of a two-part question. So it's mostly Bureau of Land Management, and there is some Forest Service, and there is two large wilderness study areas that the boundary would encompass. It doesn't take in and absorb any private property per se, but it surrounds an awful lot of public property and private land, ranches, and where it doesn't take it, it can. Eminent domain is a scary thing in our federal government with overreach, and there's property devaluation. There's something called Federal Reserve water rights. There's a whole rabbit hole to go down. So it would be detrimental to these local communities, these legacy ranchers, cattle grazing allocations, the future of critical mineral extraction, and private property rights. And these small rural towns in western Colorado, they depend on access to public land for logging, mining, ranching, and just outdoor recreation, just the ability to roam freely and enjoy freedom in this country.
Well, and Josh Lowenstein, ultimately, it looks like the goal would be to limit human access to these lands. Is that correct?
Oh, that would be correct. And any of these proposals are, serious as far as how they could limit the public's access to the public ground. But the other thing is that from the point of view of being in opposition to these, we can't give an inch. We can't compromise at all, and that's unfortunately what Sean is running into with his area. And also, it's been an ongoing thing with a compromise here, because in the Canales County conservation area proposal, there has been threats that come from the Senator Bennett's representative in the area, saying that if we don't accept a national conservation area, we're going to get a national monument, and it makes the people, the locals, in fear that they're going to lose their permitted grazing ground and all of that. But the other thing about the compromise is it can lead directly into things that are actually worse than conservation areas and national monuments. It can lead towards wilderness designations, and even worse than that, it can lead to, should the natural asset companies get revived, it could allow Wall Street investors to buy public land, which could do all kinds of terrible closings and logging and unrestricted mining and things like that in areas that would have never otherwise been subject to it at all. So it could get worse. So our best bet is to stand strong against all of this stuff.
Well, and Sean, I see that this could also really, ultimately, you mentioned limit access to natural resources, but also you mentioned grazing, which ultimately that could affect our food sources. So it's going to affect people in the urban centers and their opportunity to buy abundant or have abundant energy or food sources at an affordable price. Is that a stretch, or do you agree?
No, you're absolutely correct. And I can't remember exactly now. I've done so much research in the past 11 months, but I believe there are 78 ranching families that have a total of 300 grazing allocations, and those are round numbers, within this proposed monument boundary we have over here. And of those, about 50%, if a monument or national conservation area or any restrictive government process was put on these lands that would affect the grazing allocation, they would go out of business. So you're talking about legacy ranchers, 4 and 5 generation ranching families that are no longer in business, and that does provide a direct chain directly to our food source for this country. Now, on the flip side of that, we have to be careful, because the environmental activists, especially those in my area, and Josh has got the same exact problem, is they don't tell the truth. They leading to these things by fear-mongering, spreading misinformation. So like in this case, they will tell you, well, it won't affect the cattle grazing allocations. And in fact, it's a half-truth, because it doesn't, if a monument's created, or a national conservation area, or even a wilderness area, it doesn't automatically mean that the grazing allocation goes away. But what happens is the roads are closed, access and trails are closed, and therefore the rancher can't get into those areas to maintain ponds, to haul water to cattle in the winter months, to fix fences. So the grazing allocations become no longer economically feasible, and they're not renewed. And I'll give you an example of one over here on the western slope in Mesa County. It's called the Dominguez Escalante National Conservation Area. It was created in 2007. It's 278,000 acres, of which 66,000 acres is now a wilderness designation. When it was created, the rule book for the Dominguez Escalante National Conservation Area was some 40 pages deep. Today, as we speak, 90% of the roads in that national conservation area have been closed to the general public. They have created a no-shooting zone, so you can't hunt that area, and they only allow camping, paid camping, in dispersed, regulated areas. And the rule book, as we speak today, is 473 pages. And one of those rules tells a cattle rancher that before his cattle can enter the area, he has to decontaminate their hooves. So these are the type of restrictions the government comes down with that affect all of us, from whether it doesn't matter if it's oil and gas, logging, just motorized outdoor recreation, and especially ranchers. I mean, we're talking about the people that feed America, and these type of government restrictions absolutely affect all of us from coast to coast.
Wow. We are talking with Josh Lowenstein, founder of Our American Lands, and with Sean Pond, who became very involved in stopping the Dolores Monument. Sean made an inference, which is true, is these radical activists never give up. And so we need to continue to shed light on this. We will do that. All of this happens because of our sponsors. For everything mortgages, reach out to Lauren Levy. It's a good idea. You should not have to force people to do it. Thank you to Laramie Energy for their gold sponsorship of the show. It's reliable, efficient, affordable, and abundant energy from oil, natural gas, and coal that powers our lives and fuels our hopes and dreams. And also check out the Center for American Values. And I had mentioned the Colorado Union of Taxpayers will be having our legislative event on Thursday, the 23rd. That is also an on values presentation at the Center for American Values in Pueblo. And it's competing events, I know, but that's going to be a really great event there. And so be sure and get to their website, AmericanValueCenter.org, for more information. And the center is non-political and nonpartisan, but focused on these foundational principles of honor, integrity, and patriotism. Pleased to have on the line with me Josh Lowenstein, founder of Our American Lands, and Sean Pond in Halt the Dolores Monument. And Sean, first of all, tell us, where was the Dolores Monument exactly? What was this area that they were that they're trying to do this monument, and now maybe a national conservation area?
So the proposed Dolores Monument is along the Dolores River, and it's a deceiving name because they call it the Dolores River Canyon National Monument Proposal, and it exists in western Colorado in Montrose and Mesa County. It's truly one of the last wild and free places in the state. It's a beautiful area, and where they call it the Dolores River Canyon National Monument, the boundaries extend 50, 60 miles outside of the river. And it encompasses something called the Uravan Mineral Belt. So while they call it the Dolores River Canyon National Monument Proposal, it's actually an anti-mining campaign. It would take in 90% of the largest and richest uranium reserve in the United States. So there's a whole bunch of these environmental activist groups that come after for different reasons. This seemed to be a significant reason for this. But it basically runs, if you're familiar with western Colorado, it's everything from a small town of Dove Creek, Colorado, up the entire Dolores River Canyon, stretching 60 miles outside of the canyon, all the way to the Utah state line. It would encompass towns of Paradox, Bedrock, Gateway, and the outlying towns of Nucla and Natarita, Colorado.
Okay, so it seems, Sean, that the Biden administration is trying to fast track so much of this before the Biden-Harris administration leaves office. Will things change significantly when Trump is inaugurated?
Absolutely. So when this thing started, every time that I spoke in public to the media, on a show, a podcast, I always said the greatest defense that we had was changing this administration. This administration, incoming January 20th, has an America First agenda, and it plans to put the American people and our industries first. So getting Joe Biden out of the White House and hiding his crayons and making sure he can't execute these federal land grabs by abusing the Antiquities Act of 1906 is imperative. And I think the American people as a whole spoke across this country. And while Joe is I don't know if people know this, but he created 2 national monuments this last week in California by abusing the Antiquities Act of 1906. So the threat's still real. We still have 12 days here to see if he will target this area. Word is he won't, that we've had enough opposition to prevent that. And I think if he was, that Donald J. Trump and the administration would overturn it anyway. So I wanted you to take 1 second to take that as a testament to people like myself and Josh Lowenstein, the organizations like Our American Lands, the Blue Ribbon Coalition. Standing up and standing our ground really can make a difference. The biggest problem that I've ran into is getting people involved. And I think if freedom-loving Americans across this country understand that land and liberty are deeply interwoven, and if people will get up, speak up, and take a stand to preserve liberty and freedom, we have a real chance at changing this country, especially in the next 2 to 4 years under this administration.
So, Josh, you are really staying on top of so many things, and another thing that has been is this designation for the Canadian Lynx of thousands of acres, and there's a commentary period on that. Bring us up to speed on that.
Well, amen to what Sean just said. That was great. but B, on the Canadian Lynx, I sent you the information to be able to put it up on your website about the comment period, which ends on January 28th. But it is 5 million acres just in Colorado, 400,000 of which would be enveloped by this designation that is private property. And how that would affect it, they didn't specify in any of their documentation so far. But it goes over 6 states, and it's over 12 million acres that's actually would be designated for the Canadian lynx. And in Colorado, which the lynx got introduced, 24 years ago about, and so far there's somewhere that they can count between 50 and 150 lynx in Colorado, and that they need, 5 million acres. And I mean, these areas are already protected by every kind of federal law there is, and the designations related to mountain lions and the lynx, and now these darn wolves that they're introducing, and good Lord, that when are they going to stop with all this stuff? Soon there's going to be, children being carted off. In fact, my friend Angel Cushing out in Kansas said that a coyote got a hold of a 5-year-old kid and attacked it and started dragging it down a path that they were walking on. And of course, it's only a matter of time till, it's a wolf or a now starved out mountain lion that got run out of its food supply by the wolves that's going to, kill a child. It's only a matter of time with these silly designations. It's crazy.
Well, all of it seems to be, thank you, Josh, all of this seems to be really anti-human flourishing. And we can be good stewards of our earth and also coexist with nature and have human flourishing. But this is all very anti-human flourishing. And the last thing on this, Sean, though, is these environmentalists are not doing things to really take care of the land, just hands off of the land. We see these intense forest fires. Of course, we're seeing this fire in the Los Angeles area right now. And I think a lot of it's because we don't have proper management of our forests. If we no longer have cattle grazing on grassland, then we'll have more intense fires. And so this is really anti-human flourishing, Sean Pond.
Yeah, I'll kind of comment on what Josh opened up with. The ultimate goal of all of these designations, restrictions, protected areas for wildlife habitat, all go to one place, and it's all driven by the United Nations 30 by 30 agenda. And if people think that that's a hoax or a conspiracy theorist, I assure you it is not. A simple Google search will educate you. And the ultimate goal of the 30 by 30 is rewild in the West. It's protecting 30% of all lands and all waters by the year 2030. Joe Biden called it the America the Beautiful Act. So like when I'm going to use an example of the 2 national monuments that Joe Biden just created this week in California. He created something called wildlife corridors, which is a goal of the environmental activists and the ultra-left Green New Deal folks. He created a wildlife corridor by connecting all of the national monuments, well, all but one so far, in California, all the way to the Bears Ears National Monument in Utah. Now, this is where my fight ties in. If they were able to create the Dolores National Monument or National Conservation Area, those would connect. So you're talking about a wildlife corridor all the way from Southern California to Colorado. These wildlife corridors then create an environment with road closures, access restrictions, no drilling, no logging, no mining, and they now fit the definition for wilderness designations, which is always the ultimate goal. They want to rewild the West. They want all human activity off of these lands, whether that be oil and gas drilling or just us going for a ride on our side-by-side on a Sunday or taking your Jeep out with your family. They don't want fossil fuels. They don't want cattle ranchers. The ultimate goal is to combat climate change. They believe that if we don't rewild the West, if we don't save waters and lands, that we will have a global extinction event.
Wow. Hey, Sean Pond, thank you. We are out of time. Josh Lowenstein, thank you. We will get you guys on again soon. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing. And my friends, stay tuned for hour number 2. We'll be right back.